Matt! We have to talk about people under the stairs.
Welcome to Horror Movies with Friends! It is day 20 of 31 days of horror movies, friends, and drink pairings. And, I mean, I think it's all right there. We've done this. I've reached 20. I didn't know I'd make it this far. And before we go any further, I just want to invent. I was going to invent my very special...
I'm a creation.
Yeah,
I'm a monster.
Yeah, Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Ah! This is Matt Landsman, writer, editor, and horror fanatic. He wins the costume award for today. I try to let my guest win every week, or every day.
Well, if you're going to go on a video podcast, you got to wear your Halloween 3 hat, shirt, the full deal.
I love it. Yeah. Season of the Witch. Matt, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And so this is, when's the last time we saw each other?
Well, pre-pandemic for sure.
Right.
I think Comic-Con 2019, probably.
Maybe even, I don't even think I went 2019, so it might have been 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been since we were all at Comic-Con summer camp, basically.
Yeah.
Courtesy of our friend Russ.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Who brings people together through nerddom. And that's sort of what this is. And so, Matt, what movie did you recommend, and what movie did we watch together?
Yeah, so when you first told me that this was like you were hoping to pick some like socially conscious kind of horror movies or horror movies that had more of a message or something like that, my first instinct was People Under the Stairs.
Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs.
Wes Craven, The People Under the Stairs. And from 1991. And then I kind of looked for other options to present you with because I didn't fully know the format of the show, and it kept coming back to this, and then this was the one you picked out of my list of options, and I was like, oh, that's great, that was my literal first pick.
That was it was fated to be. And it was of the list that you gave me, the one that I hadn't seen, and that's where I always want to go. I always want to, jump into something new, especially when it's Wes Craven, as, viewers undoubtedly know, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, Last House on the Left, what's the...
Red Eye.
Oh, really? Yeah, I did see that. Is that one of his later ones? I remember seeing Red Eye, yeah.
Deadly Friend.
With
the robot buddy.
Yeah. Did he do Deadly Blessing as well? He does a lot of deadly things.
I don't want to misspeak on this. But maybe.
And so, and this is sort of a more under the radar choice. And from what my understanding, maybe mixed reviews, or wasn't appreciated in its time?
Made a shitload of money in its time. I'm allowed to curse.
Yes. Oh, okay. Please.
Yeah. And
I was just like, I didn't know it.
Yeah. Made a lot of money in its time. I recently went back and watched the Siskel and Ebert on this one. Ebert admired it, but overall it wasn't for him. Siskel actually liked this one and gave it the thumbs up. So, and I think Variety critics liked it as well. So I think overall it is positively received, and it's one of those movies that's been more positively received in the years since its time, which I think is the case for many horror movies.
And I think in this case, it's sort of, unfortunately, because it showed to be so prescient and not necessarily ahead of its time, but pointing out things that were there, things that were in the walls, things that were, people that were under the stairs that we wanted to ignore.
Right under our nose the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now we are going to put some spotlight. We're going to go under the stairs But to do that, we need some liquid courage. And Matt, would you like a beer to accompany this?
Yes, please introduce this.
Yeah, this fine beverage. So this is from Crowns and Hops Brewing Company. They're out of Inglewood, California, and they are a publicly owned business, meaning that you can invest. You can put money in and be part of owning this company. It's like the Green Bay Packers of beer. And this beer is the Freestyle Versus. It's an IPA brewed with Mosaic and Citra hops. And I'm just gonna say that they say that those are the big homies. That's what it says, aka the big homies. And that's, I think, because Mosaic and Citra are the most common IPA hops. So this is going to be a juicy one, though, I believe, like some, like a hazy. And so I've had their beer before. I love it. So I'm excited to have this. I haven't had this one though.
Oh,
so
awesome.
We'll see. I will open this. Get that noise, and then I will pour for camera here.
Yes, and I'm glad that you are pouring for me because I am not the best.
The best pour?
Yeah, I give a pretty embarrassing amount of head when
Oh, well, but it's hard to do in this scenario, but that's like not too bad.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And then I think we'll have more in the can here if we
Smells
need more.
good. I'm a foot away from it and I can.
Ooh, that's a
Smells
good,
yeah.
that's a great sign. And here, I'll give you a little bit more, top you off. And then let's just like
Give it the swish.
the swish. Okay. And then
Behold.
and then
Something's in there.
well, Matt, I'm
Cheers.
stoked to have a sip with you here. All right. Oh yeah, let's do that. Good. That's a nice beer.
I really like it. It's really light and like summery. It's not too hoppy. It's like
Yeah, it
goes
is.
down smooth.
I think it's an in-between. It's one of those West Coast IPAs that has some of the juice, the hazy thing, but I would actually say it's not necessarily a hazy IPA. I think it's just a traditional, closer to that, but it definitely has some juice in there. Yeah, and it's not very like sort of bitter or overly hopped. You know, I think IPAs were my entry into beer. There's a loud car driving, so I'm gonna wait. IPAs were my entry into beer, my favorites, but then they got to the point where just like they all taste the same and they're all sort of overly hopped or just bitter to be bitter. And that's why the hazies have sort of been this fun new discovery for me, or relatively new. Now it's almost the same now for hazies, where it's like, oh, these all taste the same. So what's new? We'll find out.
Yeah, it has a very like airy, almost like summery taste. It's kind of I don't know, it definitely doesn't have like fall beer vibes, but that's fine. I like summer beers better.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm trying to, not go by what you'd expect, because Wes Craven doesn't always do that. And what movie of Wes Craven's, or I guess you could say character in this movie if you want, does this beer evoke?
That's a really good question.
I'm Poindexter. Everybody calls me Fool.
Part of why it's tough to answer that is because the characters in this movie have such ridiculous names that you almost don't want to call anything good something named after a character in the movie, where the characters' names are literally like Fool and Roach and I guess Alice is
Alice
a
and
perfectly
Leroy.
accessible name.
Yeah. And Mommy and Daddy. I would say this has Fool vibes, and I mean, I looked into a little bit of tarot before coming on here. That was my research, and I just like that Fool sort of, it's not necessarily just like, oh, you're an idiot connotations. It's actually more of like new beginnings. It's more of the ignorance, as they say in the beginning of this movie, when Fool is getting a tarot reading, and it's sort of more of like an opportunity to learn. New opportunities, the beginning of a journey. And I mean, that's why it starts the movie like that, right? That's the opening of the scene. So to me, this feels like sort of, as you said, it's has kind of a lighter hit. So it sort of feels like we're harkening back. We're going back, and we're going back to 1991 here. So
Yeah.
that's
To where it all began.
yeah, and we're still fools now, unfortunately.
It's interesting that his real name is Poindexter,
Yeah.
which is like the literal opposite of a fool. So it's like
Yeah.
he's the young fool who's got to grow up to become Poindexter, which is like a smart person's name, typically.
Yeah, no, exactly. Poindexter is like the most nerd name that you always are given.
Yeah, when he said that was his real name, I was like, that's even more unbelievable to me than his name being Fool.
Yeah, no, neither of them. Yeah, they're very rare names, I would say. But it fit. Like Poindexter, he wants to be a doctor. And Fool, we should say, is played by Quintin Adams, who we will all recognize from Sandlot and Mighty Ducks.
On behalf of the Ducks, I'd like to say welcome. Cake eater.
And he's very good in this.
He is great in this, and
instantly empathetic and carries like, yeah, you feel bad for him and his mom, but he also just brings the fun, like this like Goonies kind of charm to me.
Yeah, no, he definitely. He carries the movie because Ving is in it for a while. Ving Rhames is Leroy, and then we have Mommy and Daddy, Everett McGill, the guy from Twin Peaks, Hank, I believe is his name in Twin Peaks. But like they're sort of, they're in it, but it's his movie. It's Brandon Adams' movie.
Ving Rhames in another 90s movie with a gimp suit.
That's true.
Yeah. I was like, where have I seen this outfit before?
You just, same one, yeah.
Yeah, it could have been. I think there's a few great performances in this movie. And, Ving Rhames is fine in this movie, but...
he's doing Ving Rhames things.
Yeah, the villains are really exceptional villains in this movie.
What are I doing, Mommy? It is time to clean house! Total spring cleaning.
Like, both just in terms of wildness and weirdness and just utter hilarious mania in their performances.
Yeah, it's very manic. It's very over the top, but it's unfortunately believable to me. Like, it's not this. It doesn't. But like their first introduction is like, by the fireplace, he's just eating meat, like, and basically reveals himself to be racist, greedy, and cannibal, and do we know that he's
incestuous?
Incestuous, and then also beats his daughter, and maybe worse.
And worse than all else, a landlord.
Yes,
yes. A slumlord. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, well, he owns liquor stores, and then he owns a bunch of apartment complexes that are all pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And he is evicting. That's how we meet Fool. Yeah, that's the whole thing, is that Fool's family is getting evicted for being 3 days late on rent.
Right, and his mom has cancer.
And his sister has a bunch of kids. That's like the other thing that is said in there. And then that Leroy, I guess, is just staying with them and sort of the bad influence.
Yeah, he's just like the family friend who's like, you want to do a heist of your landlord's house? And it kind of, it almost took this like fairy tale structure. Like the treasure map leads to the gold in the landlord's house. We're going to go like find the beanstalk or whatever.
You even said Goonies, and it's sort of like, oh yeah, we're going to go find treasure. Yeah. The sort of fantasy element of it, right? Like, and it makes sense. For a kid, every kid's fantasy is the treasure map or finding treasure, but also it's sort of this, I feel like, a connection to like the American dream, or this sort of like hope that, lower class or the underprivileged can come and just, find the treasure or find the way out of this situation. And here is, Leroy Ving Rhames with the sort of magic ticket.
Yeah, major opportunist who's like super mean to Fool in this movie.
That was my note.
Cons this child into doing this thing, and then when they get in hot water, like leaves him to die. Basically, I was like, Leroy is a terrible person in this.
So Leroy, you think I got what it takes to be a doctor?
Dr. Burglary, maybe.
When Fool was saying, I want to be a doctor, he just laughed at him and said, good luck, you can't afford that. You can't even afford your rent. You're not going to be a doctor. And he just, shits on Fool's dreams. And we don't do that here.
Yeah.
Ving Rhames is not a mentor figure at all. He's just basically the inciting incident and the way to get us to that house.
Yeah. And that house is like, I was telling Andy before the show, you can go see the house at 2215 South Harvard Boulevard in downtown Los Angeles.
In every neighborhood, there is one house that adults whisper about, and children cross the street to avoid.
I have gone and seen the house. It is as scary now as it was 30 years ago. It is a big black, monolithic, terrifying-looking house behind a wrought iron gate. And, you know, I can only assume that the interior parts of this house were mostly a set in the filming, because so much of it is just like behind the walls, and it has this very like inconsistent labyrinthine geography. And, you know, there's all these booby traps. The door handles they're like electrocuted. And the like stairs turn into a slide.
I love the stairs thing.
All this like mousetrap kind of shit going on in this house that makes it very whimsical. I think that, you know, it helps you to swallow like the cannibalism.
And just complete like abuse of Alice, but also all the people under the stairs, which are we learn are
kidnapped boys who were sinners, who were not good enough to be the sons of the very puritanical, incestuous mama, papa, brother, sister couple.
Mommy and yeah, exactly. There's some judgment here, and I'm not entirely sure it's warranted. Yeah, and they even said a line where like they cut out the bad parts of the boys and then put them downstairs, and that's why they're all sort of mangled or have been deformed.
Well, they can't speak.
Yeah.
So they spoke evil or whatever, so they cut out their tongue.
Right, that's one of the themes of the movie is hear no evil, speak no evil. Do no evil?
I guess.
Sure, yeah, and it's like the monkey, it's the monkey emojis that we all know and hate or love.
Yeah, they did a lot of evil.
You can't be the death of me!
Everett, McGill, and Wendy, Robie, both from Twin Peaks.
Yeah, there were a couple in Twin Peaks too, weren't they?
Well, and what's funny, so Wendy, Robie, I was listening to this on the Blu-ray, Shout Factory, shout out, and she was taking a weekend break from filming Twin Peaks when she came in to read for this, and they were like, can you get Everett McGill, is he around to do an audition? And then she got him in. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, and they both are just awesome in this. I think like in terms, they're disgusting, they're like absolutely terrible people, but like that's great villains to me. And funny too, like even though they're like terrible, like there's scenes where he's like dancing around with
that
his,
one was
like,
the one I was gonna mention.
Bayonet gun and shit.
I got him dance.
Yes. And when he like he opens the door, he's like, shut the fuck up at the dog. It's hilarious. And then gets punched in the dick immediately afterward. It's really funny stuff. Yeah.
It is funny.
They're very inept villains. The whole thing kind of reminded me of Home Alone.
It's reverse Home Alone.
Yeah.
And I wrote that down. It was like a home invasion movie, but in reverse, because it's sort of like Fool goes in. He's the one invading this place, but then he has to go in twice because he has to come back and get Alice. Right. So there's like this, they have to take and free the people that are in there. And I think that's a really cool, interesting dynamic. Because in a way, I mean, they're the ones that are breaking the law when we,
right.
You know, if you care about that, obviously these people deserve everything that's coming them and more. Mm-hmm. But like that's just much more interesting than the other way around, where Fool is like protecting, you know, whatever. We've seen that, like we're protecting our own house. It's the other way. The villains are the one protecting their house, and we want them to fail. That's a fun dynamic that you don't see.
The home invasion format, when inverted, makes for something really interesting because it does kind of like put your hero in this like labyrinth, in this like Alice in Wonderland, I was gonna bring that up scenario. And yeah, I mean the house is. It's also interesting that the title, The People Under the Stairs, if you hear that without the context, you think about the scary people under the stairs are the villains, and they're actually like the oppressed.
Yes.
People who were kidnapped, living in the projects or whatever that these slumlords lord over, and were deemed to be like unworthy sons or whatever. So it's another one of those like cases of like where the more monstrous looking characters aren't the real monsters.
Absolutely, yeah. And even the people under the stairs, I think it extends to, you know, Fool and everyone else too. You know, it's anyone that is not mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, I mean, Alice is sort of the only one who maybe doesn't get that moniker in their head, but like she's basically on thin ice the entire movie.
Yeah, because she's developed a friendship with Roach, who I guess is like one of the would-be sons who kind of like, despite getting his tongue cut out, still manages to roam free within the walls of the house.
And he can communicate, and he seems to be the most, I guess...
With it?
With it, yeah. And yeah, he's the one, the thing in the walls, and we see Alice has been feeding him, and he's... That guy, that actor, I don't know his name, I can put it under here, but he's in so many different things, and and he always sort of plays those weird, quirky characters.
Sean Whalen.
Sean Whalen, yeah, like he's been in so many things.
Oh, he was in Twister, Men in Black.
There you go. But yeah, he is an interesting actor. He sort of is that ubiquitous weird guy in a way that what's the guy in The Dark Knight that always plays
David Dastmalchian. I just saw him in Dune last night.
Okay,
yeah.
Isn't he seems like the corollary of this.
Yeah, the like creepy character actor.
Yeah.
Just like, it is crazy. Like, that's so tangential, but David Dastmalchian has just managed to be like that guy in every major franchise now.
Yeah.
Like Marvel, DC, Blade Runner, Dune. Like, this guy's popping up everywhere. He's in 2 different DC universes.
That's right. Suicide Squad, and then what was the other
Dark
one?
Knight.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, right.
So,
yeah. I said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an appreciation for those actors because like they just add so much flavor to things, and I derive a lot of pleasure from just recognizing people or just being like, oh, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you're probably the same way. Or I think just horror fans or nerds for movies are always like, it's like this own universe in its own of seeing these connections.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing like the Lynch verse, like the Twin Peaks universe intruding upon this movie, and like you can kind of like feel that, like you can tell that there was like an intentionality in casting those characters to bring that kind of like, I don't know, obtuseness to these performances.
Obtuseness is a great word, and also just the over-the-top nature, because Twin Peaks is a melodrama, right? But it's also the themes in this movie, I think, are very similar to Twin Peaks. So, like, what's the horror isn't the monsters or whatever, it's actually just the people that are living in this house, you know? And the metaphor is, it's the structure that's fucked up, you know, the systemic problems of this country. They create the monsters. Mm-hmm. The people under the stairs, they create it. And so the monsters are actually them, of course.
Well, it's a huge, like, anti-landlord commentary, which has become, like, an increasing issue. I mean, literally in the end of this movie, spoilers, we see the literal redistribution of wealth in, like, the most... most on the nose and simultaneously, like, wish-fulfilling kind of way, where there's literal... gold coins raining down from the sky and blessing everyone in the hood, basically.
Still, like, I loved it. I was there for that, which was, like, that's one of my favorite parts is when Fool's about to get, I think, well, he almost gets killed, like, 4 different times, and it's always the classic, like, villain thing where, like, he takes a little bit more time and he doesn't get...
The villains are really inept.
Oh, yeah. No, it is, like, Rocket Power, or Team Rocket, sorry.
Yeah,
Rocket Power's a different thing.
They're really bumbling.
Yeah.
That, like, Joe Pesci, Home Alone kind of way where they could have killed him if they just didn't suck.
You hurt your mother.
At the very end in that final act, Fool is saved by the community itself. And sort of that, you know, activism. It's Ruby, his sister, and Booker, who's the, oh my God,
the
ubiquitous.
Grandfather?
Is he the grandfather? Or he just felt like sort of the elder statesman?
I thought it was like Fool's grandfather who was saying he remembered the, you know, the brother-sister combo.
Right, he's the one who gave
years
the information.
ago and stuff.
And then them and then the entire community is there to basically protest. It's, you know, it's what is needed to make change, right? Everyone at the fucking doorstep. Because the police multiple times have a chance to help and don't.
Right, and it's that classic case of them like trusting the, you know, uppity white couple as they're literally like, oh, look over here, officer, as they close the door full of guns behind them. And,
and like crazy shit. Yeah, way crazier than just guns. But 100%.
It's funny, Ebert, in his review, talked about how, like, the Variety critic at the time that this came out said that it was about, like, Ronald and Nancy Reagan literally like oppressing like the lower class.
I think that feels right to me.
I mean, pretty astute, especially like when you look at it from like the historical context of now, you know, with the retrospectroscope always being clear. What did this remind you of? I'm curious about that, because this reminded me of something very specific when I was watching it again now.
Oh, in terms of another movie?
Yeah.
Oh. It reminded me of a screenplay I'm working on.
Plug.
Yeah, exactly.
Tune in
in 5 years.
6
We'll
months
see.
or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah.
Oh my god, it'd be great if it was 6 months that was happening. A very positive
You
spin.
can read PDF of draft 2.5 in 6 months. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the lines in that script was like, America is a haunted house. And that's, to me, was the theme of this fucking movie. I'm trying to think. If you say it, I'm sure I'll get it. But I was getting all the Goonies, the Alice in Wonderland vibes, and even the fact that Alice at some point is beckoned to jump out into the hole. Fool does, but she doesn't go down the rabbit hole, which is like the pond, and then the pond is
and then
closed
they ended
up.
up like putting spikes in the pond or something.
I wanted to see
They
it.
think of everything.
Yeah, I wanted to see that, but I guess they didn't have that budget to show that. Or it didn't matter.
It was crazy how like surprisingly like non-lethal these villains were, considering all the resources they had. He was such a bad shot with his like Sposs shotgun or whatever that was, and then he put a bayonet on it, and like they were just very inept. And the dog too, like a Rottweiler type dog like that could fuck you up, and like it didn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, it fucked up Ving a little bit, but yeah, it was the kid like beat the dog up on multiple occasions.
I felt sad for the dog.
I did. Oh yeah, the dog is not the problem. Yeah, the dog
he was just well trained
in a abusive way. Yeah, exactly. It reminds you of like dog fighting. I mean, it's the same thing, and that they're gonna go and find another dog, and that like because they don't care at all about. Like you said, he just yelled at the dog. He didn't give a shit about him. They were just it was just a guard dog.
Yeah, they were going to find another dog. The same way they were looking for like a perfect son and going through all these boys under the stairs or whatever, which is, pretty weird. What it reminded me of, and I didn't get this from it the first time I saw it, but revisiting it, I was like, this has a very Texas Chainsaw Massacre tone to it. In the mania of the villains and this kind of like their like everyday expectation of domestic roles is something that is just totally crazy to anyone living in the normal outside world. Like they have this very casual expectation of each other to like feed the cannibal meat to the people under the stairs and kill the intruders and stuff, the way that other people expect, their significant other to do laundry or something like that. They were screaming at each other with this like casual expectation of violence in a way that had this manic tone to it. It really reminded me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre's Sawyer family.
Yeah.
And at one point in time, the man, I think he's just called the man in the credits, the Everett McGill character, was wearing the same yellow apron that Leatherface wears.
Oh,
and
I'm sure that was intentional.
It could have been. I mean, I don't know if, I know that Wes and Toby were probably friends. I don't know if it was like a homage to that or anything, but just, I don't know, the way they were screaming at each other, the way they were cannibals, and then, like I said, the apron and just this casual, crazy violence in the big, like, dilapidated house. I was like, this is very much like the Sawyer family from Texas Chainsaw 1 and 2.
That is a great comp. And having just watched those, I had seen the first one before, but watched the second one for
isn't it
previous.
great?
It's so, the first one is incredible movie. Second one is insane, and I think the second one has a lot of the same flavor of this movie in terms of maybe its tone. But I agree with you. The family is. I mean, there's a lot of parallels in terms of the cannibalism, but also everything
the
you
way
just said.
that the Sawyer and Chop Top are like, get them, hold them down, and screaming at each other. It reminded me of
they're just sort of bickering and yelling at each other, but also like have this unspoken like this is what we do here.
It's just that this is what we do. This is our thing.
Yeah. Well, and because we it's not even a weird thing that Fool, Spencer, and Ving Rhames and Leroy all are breaking into this house. It's like, it seems like this happens all the time. And like, this is just what they're expected, and everyone that comes.
If you need to build several booby traps into your house,
yes,
to the point, I think, like, don't like spikes come out of the wall at one point or something? Like, you probably have told too many people about your room full of gold if that's a regular occurrence.
My thought was, do they know about their room full of gold? Because their house looks like shit.
I mean, they put all the money into the little ramp and the spikes coming out of the wall and the electrocuted doorknobs and spikes in the pond. It's like the Twitter meme where somebody's like, I spent like $30 this month on electricity, $50 on the gas bill, $600 on candles. Please help me, my family's dying. And someone's like, spend less on candles. And he's like, no. Their booby trap budget for this house is like the entire rent of the community.
And actually, that's so intentional, right? Because it's like the defense budget for America, or like the how much we spend for military and weapons and all of that stuff. And if we just gave it to the community, like, we would have less enemies. They are creating the enemies in the same way that they're creating the people under the stairs, and like, they fucking deserve to be attacked. And yeah, I think that's definitely in there. And the fact also that I think there's so many wealthy people out there, the upper 1%, that have so much money they don't know what to do with, or they know what to do with it. It's to hoard it. It's hoarding. It's theirs. It's no one else's. No one else can use it. They don't fucking need it for anything, or like, they already have enough to make their booby traps, but they're not sharing it, right? And that feels very accurate, actually, especially when you're looking around like, this is a piece of shit house, but like, to them, it's their home, and also sort of like a Portrait of Dorian Gray type thing. I think just the houses sort of reflects
that kind of like ugliness below the surface.
Yeah,
that's definitely an interesting comparison. I mean, the idea that they, have so much fear and hatred of the external community that they have their thumb on top of, that they are taking their money to fortify the defense of their house from the people that they control, is like, I mean, that's America, baby.
Yeah, it is.
It was early 90s LA.
Yeah,
It's an LA movie.
It is an LA movie. If we like LA.
It's very inner city. I mean, you could definitely like make the kind of like aesthetic comparisons and stuff to Candyman.
Yeah, I think so. And
even though it's not exactly supernatural.
No, I think it has a slightly, Candyman is, I think, this seems, while it's very serious themes, the movie itself isn't serious. And I think Candyman's a little bit darker or more intense. At least, like, Candyman actually scares me. This, like, in some ways, this one doesn't.
I actually found some of this a little scary. Rewatching this, when they first come into the house, it definitely, like, descends into just, like, pure mania where you're not as afraid of the villains. But when they first come into the house, Fool and Leroy, and the couple is coming home, and they're like scrambling to hide from them, and the initial dog attack. I was like, this is kind of tense, and they're like running up the stairs.
I agree with you. Yeah, I guess that's a different feeling to me. That's tension or suspense and thrill, but it's like, I guess I still know that they're not gonna. Well, I guess that's not necessarily where my fear comes from.
That turn into horror when it's revealed that cannibalism is in play, because it's like, oh, I didn't know we were there, because it's like, first we have that little cat and mouse chase with some booby traps and stuff, and you're like, okay, this is suspense. And then when you reveal the kind of like ghoulish people under the stairs, and then he's like feeding them human meat, and it kind of looked like he was eating it too.
Oh, he was. He was chewing. Yeah.
It was like, then that's Wes Craven just like amplifying it and making it was evolve into horror.
Cannibalism is a very on-the-nose metaphor too, right? That's literally
they're eating the lower class.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And sort of just perpetuating the inequality, and it's about classism for sure, or class inequity. And God, it just, the movie, I wish more people would see it, and I know that Jordan Peele is doing a remake of it.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that. I'd be curious to see what that is, because I think this movie is way crazier than what would get made today.
Yeah.
It just is pretty pervasive stuff at times.
Prove it.
I'd be curious if, like, you know, the class commentary would be much more at the front of mind, making a new version of this movie, and it would be speaking much more to current events than this, which is just like a horror reverse home invasion movie that you sense these themes, but it's not really like beating you over the head with it.
Yeah, well, it's not even too far away from the themes from Get Out, and that, you know, a black man has come and brought into a house of wealthy people, and then is being basically, the hope is to be subjugated or taken into, you know, by the house and never letting out again. You know,
Yeah.
So like it definitely has that going for it, or in terms of like very similar themes. And so yeah, I will definitely watch it, because this, you know, Wes Craven's great, but he's also a white man, so like I want to see, you know, whoever is tapped to direct this or bring this to, I want to see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole other dimensionality that you can bring to this same concept, and, you know, essentially tell the same basic story with just like, I don't know, a completely different flair to it and a completely different world experience. Revisiting this, I was like, I really like this. This is really good. This is top 3 Craven for me.
Top 3 Craven, shit. Well, I guess so it'd be Scream, or Nightmare on Elm Street, and then this one. Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think, I think of the other ones we mentioned, that's true. Yeah, I think so. And it's a delightful discovery, even though delightful is maybe the wrong word. But like, no, I had a great time with it, and I didn't know exactly what to expect. I mean, I knew the themes. I figured it's in the title, really. But I think the Twin Peaks stuff and how over the top it is, yet fucking vicious it is, and how off the wall it is. And all these different things that we're talking about, the metaphors and just other sort of kernels. I was really into it, and I think honestly, unless you have more things, I feel like I just want to thank you for making sure that I watched this movie this month.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen it since college. It was a grad school, but it was a bonding experience for me and a good friend who went on to write some stuff and create some projects together. And I feel like, so this is like kind of a funny anecdote. The thing that we really loved was the one specific line where the man says, he yells at Alice and he says, "Bad girls go to hell," or "Bad girls burn in hell." And my friend and I have quoted that to each other on everything that we've worked on since, to the point where that phrase, "Bad girls burn in hell," is kind of like taken on like a memification outside of even this movie, just for me and my friend. I mean, and not that I like, you know, not that I believe in any of that. I just,
well, no,
it was a funny phrase delivered from Everett McGill, and he's definitely like meant to be funny in this.
Oh yeah. Well, but it's also like nothing he says is remotely close to true, right? Or the reality. So like when he's saying bad girls go to hell, you know, we know that if there is a hell, he has a great spot there.
Yeah, he lands in the puddle of shit at the end, I think.
Yeah, that's the hell. Well, People Under the Stairs. It's on Peacock TV. I didn't say that earlier, but I will add it to the Chiron. And Matt, thank you so much. I hope we have more movies ahead. And beer, you know, this is, and you know, I guess let's have one more sip of the beer just to...
That's all I have left.
I have one more. I like to save one. People Under the Stairs, watch it. And tomorrow, what the hell, tomorrow in quotes, what do I have tomorrow? I believe I have the 1972 blaxploitation film, Blackula, with my fellow IC Ithaca College alum, Tatenda Mabutsi. So join us. That is streaming pretty much everywhere, like for free, all over the place. So it shouldn't be hard to find. Just put it in your search engine. Why I've been doing this, why I'm, you know, inviting people. I want to know better and want to connect with and want to talk movies with and share that with you guys is and ladies and fuck, why did I say that?
Don't gender the fundraiser.
I know, I don't want to gender the audience either. And that's why I'm sharing it with you all. And I'm doing this for the Trevor Project. I'm doing a fundraiser through the Trevor Project, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping LGBTQ plus youth. And I'm doing this in honor of my friend who, I think would have, I don't know if he saw this movie, but he definitely would have gotten a kick out of it. And I think about him every time I'm watching these movies, any movie. And talking about movies with friends, that's the best. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next phase of the moon. And let's howl at the moon for the friends we miss, the friends we wish were here to see this. Ow, ow! Woo!
We have to talk about a movie! Matt!